I tried to run from him, but the bond dragged me back. A werewolf romance audiobook. The storm rolled over the mountains like an angry god. It wasn't just rain, it was punishment. Sheets of it blindsided my old Chevy pickup, hammering the windshield so hard my rattling wipers may as well have been toothpicks against a flood. Thunder cracked, splitting the air wide open. The road was narrow here, little more than 2 lanes of cracked asphalt curving along the ridges. On one side, rock face, slick with running water. On the other, a drop straight into the pines. All I could think was, keep driving, keep moving forward, don't look back. But of course, my mind looked back anyway. To the apartment I'd fled in the afternoon light, leaving shattered glass glittering on the kitchen floor. To the voice that had screamed at me, promising I'd never escape. To the friends who had turned their faces, too polite to ask why. New bruises kept blooming along my arms. To the cage I'd finally run from. My hands gripped the wheel so tightly my knuckles blanched under the flickering glow of the dashboard. The truck was the only thing I had left beaten, coughing smoke more days than not, but reliable enough to get me deep into the mountains where no one could find me. Or so I prayed. I drove like the devil himself was chasing me. Maybe he was. The sky owned further. Lightning slashed low across the ridge, illuminating the black silhouettes of hundreds of trees. For one strobe-lit heartbeat, they didn't look like pines at all. They looked like figures, watching, bent with malice. I jerked my eyes back to the road. Don't do this. Don't lose it now, I whispered, but my voice sounded small like a child's, trembling. The next curve came too fast. The tires skimmed over wet gravel. The headlights swung violently into empty mist. My stomach plummeted. I yanked the wheel, but too late. The truck spun. Metal shrieked as it slammed into the guardrail. Glass exploded across me in glittering shards. The impact wrenched the seatbelt so tightly against my chest, I thought my ribs had cracked. Then the world flipped into a smear of light and sound before slamming to a stop. Silence. I think I blacked out. Maybe for a few seconds. Maybe longer. When I opened my eyes, the storm's fury had softened, or maybe the mountain blocked most of its voice. Rain still poured, stinging through the broken window, soaking me to the bone. Every beat of my heart felt too loud to ensure it should keep going. I tried moving my legs. They responded with a shaky ache. My left arm screamed fire where cuts lined it, but nothing felt broken. I sucked in air, ragged with shock, and pressed shaking hands against the ruined steering wheel. That's when I heard it, breathing, not mine, not the shallow, panicked rasp I recognized as my own. No, this was deeper, steady, slow, like the breath of something enormous. I froze. My skin prickled down my back, every instinct shrieking at once. Through the cracked glass and veils of rain, I saw something dotty first. I thought it was a trick of lightning. 2 golden orbs glowing from the forest edge. But lightning fades, and these didn't. They burned with their own light, vibrant against the storm's smothering gray. Eyes, locking on me. My entire body went rigid. I couldn't even breathe, because some part of me knew these weren't the eyes of a deer or a mountain cat or any animal I'd ever seen. They were, too, knowing, patient, deliberate. They pinned me as surely as any predator. The seconds stretched. Water dripped from the roof into my lap. My stomach twisted into knots so tight I almost gagged. Still, those eyes didn't waver. I whispered before I could stop myself. "Who's there?" The forest whispered back, branches rattling as though mocking me. Then movement. Slow, deliberate. He stepped out of the trees, and all the brittle air in my lungs disintegrated. At first, I thought it was a man. The shape was tall, towering, broad-shouldered, with dark hair plastered to his face by rain. His chest heaved with the labor of motion, and even through the storm, I knew no human could cut an outline like that, muscles taut as steel wire. But then the illusion rippled. The light hit him wrong. His hands weren't hands, they were straining into claws. His jaw was too sharp, his lips curled to show teeth longer than they should be. His eyes shone brighter than flame, and his body seemed to flicker between man and beast, blurred by shadows that clung unnaturally to him. Instinct snapped me back into my seat. My pulse pounded terror down every vein, but that wasn't all it was. Something else seized me. A strange pulling sensation deep in my core, between my ribs, my very blood. Like the storm outside had thrown a hook into me, dragging me forward toward the shadowed figure. I would have said adrenaline if it hadn't felt so intimate. His golden gaze met mine across the storm, and the strangest thing happened inside me. My breath caught. My heart skipped not in panic, but recognition, like some part of me already knew him. That made it worse. So much worse. My chest tightened. Heat crept hot and foreign beneath my skin. I wanted to look away, but couldn't. Then he growled, low at first, then a rumble, vibrating down the mountain. The sound hit my ribs like a blow. The broken glass on the pavement trembled with it. I thought the very guardrail beneath us would collapse. My pulse surged in response, sinking crazily to that growl, until my body wasn't sure whose heartbeat it truly carried anymore. Then silence. I blinked, and he was gone. And no sound of brush cracking, no silhouette fleeing. He simply vanished, swallowed back into the black pines like the storm had imagined him. All that remained was the echo of his growl in my bones. And those eyes, seared into me like fire. A long howl split the silence, high-pitched, mournful, carrying far over the drenched ridges. My blood froze. Another joined, then another, then a dozen, until the night shook with it, the music of hunger, of hunt. Every hair on my body stood straight, because deep down, I knew those eyes hadn't been warning me. They had chosen me, claimed me, and the storm wasn't the most dangerous thing I'd driven into tonight. I tried to run from him, but the bond dragged me back. A werewolf romance. Audiobook Section 2. The stranger in the pinnace. The storm worsened as we moved deeper into the trees. Branches bent low under their icy burden, snapping in the wind with the sound of distant gunfire. My boots slid on half-frozen roots. My lungs burned with every gulp of freezing air. And still the wolf pressed forward, always checking that I was behind him, always waiting. If I stumbled too far, the strange knowledge gnawed at me. He wanted me to follow, needed me to. Each step carried me further from the wreckage of my old life and deeper into a darkness that frightened me more than the men who hunted me. But still I followed. What choice did I have? After what must have been nearly an hour, I stumbled out from the heavy woods into a clearing. My breath caught in relief and disbelief. A cabin stood at its center, small, rough-hewn, its roof heavy with snow, smoke whispering weakly from a crooked stone chimney. The windows glowed faint amber, too warm, too inviting to be natural. I blinked against the storm, half convinced it was another hallucination, a trick of my frozen mind. But the wolf padded forward with certainty, leaving deep prints in the snow. He stopped at the crooked porch steps, massive body glowing faint with mist. His eyes slid back to me, bright in the storm. Here? I rasped, my lips barely moving against the cold. The wolf huffed once, a strange, deliberate sound. Then, without warning, his massive body folded in on itself. I stumbled back with a cry as bone cracked, shifted, fur melted like water sliding off stone. What stood on the porch now was no wolf at all. A man, naked, bleeding. He was tall, frighteningly tall, broad shoulders tapering to a body carved from survival, not vanity. Black hair plastered wet across a sharp-boned face, the same streak of silver running through it that I'd seen across the wolf's muzzle. His skin was pale against the storm, marred by scars that spoke of battles won and lost. And his eyes, God's, his eyes, still burning gold, still him. My scream stuck fast in my throat. He swayed on unsteady feet, blood running down his side in thick rivulets from the same wound I had seen on the wolf. Yet even bleeding, even trembling, he radiated impossible strength, like the storm itself bent to his gravity. I should have run. I should have turned back into the forest and let the snow take me quickly instead of facing whatever madness this was. But my legs obeyed something older than fear. They rooted me to the ground. The stranger met my stunned stare and spoke for the first time. His voice low and rough, like stones dragged against each other. You shouldn't be here. The words carved through the storm with finality. But they didn't disguise the faint shudder that ran through him. Pain, maybe. Or something else. My voice came out small and trembling. I followed the wolf. His mouth twitched in something not quite a smile, not quite a snarl. You followed me. The impossible truth slid cold into my bones. I shook my head hard, snow scattering from my hair. No, that's not possible. Wolves don't just become men, he interrupted, his golden gaze cutting sharp through mine. Not men, not anymore. The storm howled between us, as if to fill the silence after his words. The glow from the cabin flickered across his scarred body, every inch of it proof of battles my mind couldn't surrender to logic. You're hurt, I managed, my voice cracking. He blinked, as though surprised I'd noticed. Then he laughed once, bitter and short, before stumbling forward up the porch. His blood left stark trails across the snow. He reached the cabin door and pushed it open with little more than a shrug of his powerful shoulder. Warmth spilled out, the glow of firelight curling through the storm. For a moment he leaned against the doorframe, as though bracing both against the storm and against me. Then he jerked his head, wordless invitation or command, I couldn't tell. I hesitated at the edge of the clearing. My instincts split down the middle. Run, or step into whatever this was. The cold made the decision for me. My body shivered so violently I could barely keep my knees beneath me. If I didn't move soon, I wouldn't have to worry about shifters or hunters. I'd freeze where I stood. Slowly, legs weak, I followed him inside. The cabin smelled of pine and smoke, warm and achingly familiar. A fire crackled in the hearth, throwing shadows over shelves stacked with old books, weapons, jars of herbs I couldn't name. The air was thick with the scent of burning cedar and something darker underneath. Blood, his blood. The door slammed shut behind me, and the storm outside immediately softened to a muffled murmur. I jumped, my heart slamming into my throat. He ignored me, moving with sharp efficiency. A heavy blanket hung from a hook near the fire, and he draped it across his bare shoulders with little care that his wounds were soaking it dark. His hands shook, though not from cold. I knew instinctively it was restraint. Some constant war fought beneath his skin. You need a doctor, I blurted, my voice tinny and too loud against the warm quiet. I need nothing. His reply was clipped, final. His back flexed as he bent near the fire, pulling a jar from the mantel, rubbing what looked like thick paste into the wound. I flinched as he hissed in pain, but his face only hardened, jaw tight against sound. Who are you? I whispered. His eyes lifted to me, amber, glowing, unnatural. Does it matter? Yes. Why? Because you saved me. My voice faltered, but I forced the words out. People don't do that. Not anymore. Not for me. Something flickered in his golden eyes. A shadow of recognition, maybe even sorrow, before he turned away again. You shouldn't be here, he repeated, this time softer. The storm doesn't care for intruders, and neither do wolves. You're not just a wolf, I whispered before I could stop myself. Are you? He stilled. The cabin seemed to hold its breath with him. Then slowly, deliberately, he turned back toward me, and I felt the full weight of something ancient, awful, and magnetic pressing against my chest. No, he said at last. The word was both snarl and sigh. I'm worse. I tried to run from him, but the bond dragged me back. A werewolf romance. Audiobook Section 3. Between predator and protector. Warmth surrounded me when I surfaced from unconsciousness. Not natural warmth, but something dense and living, like heat from deep coals buried within the earth. For the first time in days, maybe weeks, my body didn't ache from cold. It was almost pleasant until memory speared through me. The crash, the storm, the wolf with amber eyes, and then, the man. My eyes snapped open. I was lying on a wide leather sofa, a wool blanket hauled snug over me. A fire blazed in the stone hearth, filling the room with golden light that banished memory of the storm outside. Shadows from the flames danced over log cabin walls and cast long flickering silhouettes of mounted antlers and hanging lanterns, but none of it compared to the figure sitting in the armchair opposite me, wholly intent on watching. Him. The man, the wolf. He sat forward, elbows braced on his knees, amber eyes fixed unyieldingly on me. His shirtless chest was swathed in hasty bandages, already stained with fresh crimson. His dark hair clung damp against his neck, catching the firelight with the same silver streak I'd seen on the wolf's muzzle. My entire body screamed to bolt upright, to run, but the cabin walls and the storm beyond them reminded me. There was nowhere to go. You're awake, he said, voice a gravelly rumble that vibrated the air between us. Good. I flinched at how flatly he said it, like an assessment of condition, not a relief. My throat worked, dry and raw. What are you? Not who? Not yet. His mouth twitched. Not quite smirk, not quite grimace. You already know. I pushed myself upright, the blanket sliding into my lap. Every bruise in my body ached from the crash. No, what I know is impossible. Wolves don't turn into men. His gaze held steady. And yet I stood in your living room last night, bleeding on your rug. Or should we still pretend you dreamed all this? My voice cracked. Stop it. Very well, he conceded, though his tone carried no softness. He leaned back in the chair, broad shoulders sinking into shadow, as if space itself bent around his frame. Ask differently then. A dozen questions swarmed at once. Who are you? What do you want with me? How do you know my name? Instead, What spilled out was, "Why did you help me?" For the first time, something flickered in his fierce expression, an edge of restraint, like he'd clenched words behind his teeth. "Because I gave an oath once that I would." I frowned. "To who?" Silence. The fire popped loud between us. His eyes, glowing faint in reflected orange light, gave nothing away. I gathered the blanket closer around me, trying to mask the tremor of fear. "You knew my fiancé, Nathan, didn't you?" That made him inhale roughly, nostrils flaring. For a moment, guilt strained the carved lines of his face. His jaw flexed, then set like stone. "Yes." My heart slammed. "How?" Another terrible pause. Finally, he found something that wasn't his to find. Too loudly, that was all. Like the final verdict had already been written. One word, found. Rage surged through me. "That's all you're going to say?" He died in front of me, my voice cracked into rawness. "And all you can give me is riddles?" His eyes flashed, suddenly brighter, not with gentleness, but with something raw. "Would you prefer I spell truths that will chain you tighter than death?" The sudden sharpness in his voice silenced me as effectively as if he'd struck. I froze, clutching the blanket in fists. He breathed out slowly, pressing one hand against his bleeding side like the conversation had cost him something. "Truth is less mercy than you think." When I didn't answer, he straightened slowly in the chair. The firelight caught ridges of pale scars scored across his chest, shoulders, arms like maps carved into flesh. Old wounds layered over newer ones. The sight made my breath falter. This man was something fought and broken and rebuilt too many times to count. When he noticed me staring, his mouth thinned. "Ugly, isn't it?" I shook my head before I could bite it back. "No," I said quietly. "I was just wondering how you've survived any of it." His eyes shuddered at the softness. But not before I saw how they flickered, like my words had pierced a place he wasn't used to feeling. Before I could think more on it, he rose. Even wounded, he moved with predatory command, filling every inch between hearth and chair. He crouched low in front of me, so close the blanket heated against my chest from his nearness. "Tell me," he said, low and firm, "why you were alone out here in the storm." The sudden interrogation scraped raw across me. Maybe I like blizzards. Those burning eyes bored deeper. "And maybe I smell lies." I stiffened. The way he said it, it didn't sound metaphorical. And something in me knew. He really did smell it. He leaned closer. "You're running." I flinched. "I can scent fear like smoke," he continued, voice steady now with certainty. "And yours stinks of men in suits and blood on concrete." Am I wrong? My teeth clenched. "You don't know anything about me." "But I do," he countered, softer now. "I know your name, your scent, your past 3 months of flight. I know, shadows follow you still. The same shadows that shot me from the ridge last night, and would have claimed you near your wrecked car if I hadn't reached you first." The room tilted faint with how bluntly truth collided with me. He wasn't guessing. He knew. "How?" I managed, raw. "How do you know all this?" His amber gaze softened a fraction, dangerous in its intensity. "Because I've been hunting the men who hunt you. And because fate tied me to your bloodline long, long before you were born." The air in the cabin trembled with his words, as though the fire itself paused to listen. My throat locked around speech. "Fate?" He straightened, stepping back finally, putting distance between us. His face was shadowed as he turned half away. "You'll learn. In time." Fury shook me back to clarity. "No. No more cryptic. If you know something about Nathan's death, about why they're after me, you tell me." He turned back then, eyes sharp as knives and blazing. "If I tell you, then they'll scent you just as surely as me. And they will never stop until you're ash at their feet." The silence held, suffocating. My world spun on cliffs I couldn't yet see. Futures he refused to name. Somewhere beyond the storm battered the cabin walls like a second heartbeat, steady, relentless. And then, softer than before, his eyes found mine again and held. "For now, Elise, the only truth you need is this. You're not leaving this cabin alone. And if you try, I'll drag you back." Fire cracked, shadows lengthened. And though fear knotted sharp in my chest, I couldn't shake one more dangerous truth pressing against my ribs. I wasn't sure I even wanted to leave. The first howl shattered the calm like glass. The second one came closer. By the third, the window panes rattled in their frames. I hadn't known sound could burrow into bone. But these cries weren't just heard, they were felt. They slid under skin, crawled along nerves, and whispered something ancient to my body. "Pray." Callum cursed softly under his breath. shoving supplies into a weathered duffel. Every movement was sharp and efficient, like he'd prepared for this all his life. "Back door," he ordered, thrusting my coat into my arms. My hands shook so badly it took 3 tries to slip them into the sleeves. The fire popped behind us, too loud in my ears. My heartbeat was hammering faster than thunder. "How many?" I whispered. The crease in Callum's brow deepened as he inhaled, testing the air. His pupils shrank into slitted embers. "At least 4, maybe more." Hunting pack. The wind outside dropped for a breathless second to still, to quiet. The silence of predators circling, and then I saw one, through the frost-bitten window. A shadow detached itself from the tree line, staggering, lopping, too tall to twisted. The body of a man, emaciated with corded muscle that rippled like it didn't belong beneath skin. A face once human, jaws stretched to wide, teeth to long. Its eyes glowed pale and vacant, stripped of reason, but brimming with hunger. It sniffed the air, head twitching, then snapped its gaze toward the cabin. Toward me. My breath stuttered. "Oh God." Callum's hand closed around mine, heat searing me through the cold. "Don't look at them. Move." Before I could blink, he hauled me toward the back entrance. Every step was silent, terrifyingly controlled. He didn't move like a man. He moved like the wolf still lived just beneath his skin, shaping each stride. We slipped into the mudroom. Callum eased the door open a fraction, scanning the tree line. A gust knifed in, carrying with it a smell I couldn't name, sharp, metallic, tainted, like rot scraped across snow. That stench, I gagged softly. "Their corruption," Callum said grimly. "Feral blood dies but doesn't rest. The labs twisted them beyond balance. They decay even while living." Another howl answered, closer. This one so distorted it felt inside out. No melody, no breath. Just broken vocal cords dragged across an empty throat. Callum didn't wait this time. He yanked the door wide and pushed me into the snow. "Stay ahead of me." I stumbled into the pale brilliance of morning. Sunlight glanced off silver drifts, the storm's destruction glittering like shattered glass. The trees loomed skeletal. My boots sank deep, my chest heaving already, each inhale like knives in my lungs. Behind me, Callum slammed the door shut. Something crashed against the front of the cabin. Wood splintered. A scream split the air, the sound of something that once was human and now never would be again. "They're inside." I choked. "Then we don't stop," Callum said, already urging me down the slope. Branches whipped across my face as we plunged between trees. My legs burned. The snow clawed at my calves, dragging me down. Each step was battle, but Callum pulled me faster. His hand never released mine. His grip was iron, burning hot against my skin, dragging me forward even as my body begged to collapse. Then came the crashing sounds behind us. The ferals were fast and naturally so. Their limbs cracked as they bounded through snowdrifts, but they never slowed. Twisted silhouettes darted between pines, shadows with pale eyes gleaming. I risked one glance back and nearly sobbed. One of them was on all fours, galloping like some grotesque imitation of a wolf, its spine arching and snapping with each stride. Another tore bark from trees as it passed, claws leaving deep rents. They weren't pursuing us. They were playing with us, driving us where they wanted. "Callum, keep running," he snapped. His voice deepened, half growl, inhuman. "Don't stop, Elise." But the world blurred. Snow spun flecks into my vision. My chest screamed with pain. My body wasn't made for this. I stumbled, knees buckling. Before I hit the ground, Callum pulled me against him, sweeping me bodily into his arms. My cry caught in my chest from the shock of sudden movement, the terrifying speed. "Hold on." He bolted forward. No, not bolted, launched. The forest blurred into streaks of brown and white. My stomach lurched like I was flying. His body radiated impossible heat, each stride silent despite the snow, and his face half shifted, I realized in horror. His jaw sharpening, canines punching downward, eyes glowing twin infernos. His wolf beneath the man, breaking through the skin. Branches snapped behind us. A feral shriek split the air, too close, too wild. "They're gaining." My voice broke. "Not while I breathe." Callum snarled. The forest opened suddenly into a frozen ravine. The drop was sheer, the other side to far. Snow and ice glittered on jagged stone. My stomach dropped. "We can't." "Yes, we can." He crouched low, muscles coiling. His chest expanded with a wolf's growl. The air thrummed, and then he leapt. The world fell away beneath us. Wind screamed in my ears. Time slowed. my face buried against his neck, his heat engulfing me, the buzz of the tether between us singing like lightning in my veins. For one impossible heartbeat, I knew only the certainty of his grip and yielding. Feral, absolute. Callum's feet hit the far ledge with bone-jarring force. He stumbled, breath tearing out of him, but stayed upright. A howl echoed across the gorge, frustrated, furious. On the far side, the ferals gathered, glaring with hollow eyes. One lashed claws into the dirt and howled until the trees shuddered. For now, we were out of reach. I clung to him, trembling, staring across the ravine at the creatures that should never have existed. Callum's voice was ragged as he set me down, hands gripping my arms harder than necessary, as if to assure himself I was real. You see now, he rasped, what cerulean makes of us when they fail. My knees buckled, but his grip steadied me. My chest heaved, my pulse racing with terror and something more. The tether between us thrummed wildly, as if answering the danger, drawing me closer when I wanted to pull away. His hand brushed my cheek almost unconsciously, thumb grazing snow and sweat from my skin. His touch was too gentle for a creature who had just leapt across a gorge, carrying me like I weighed nothing. Something passed between us, something wordless, ancient, terrifying in its power. But then another howl rose in the distance. Not behind us this time, ahead. I stiffened. Oh God, there are more. Callum's jaw clenched hard, his eyes sparking with molten gold as he scanned the trees. They've circled us. He pulled me closer, lowering his head until his lips brushed my ear. His voice was low and brutal as the hunt itself. Stay at my back, Elise, because this time, we have to fight. I tried to run from him, but the bond dragged me back. A Werewolf Romance Audiobook Section 5. Shadows in the deep cave swallowed us whole. The deeper we went, the more the sounds of the surface storm faded until it was just our muffled footfalls and the distant drip of melting ice echoing off stone. My flashlight beam cut a narrow path through darkness, each flickering shape at the edges morphing into imagined claws, teeth, twisted faces like those of the ferals. Every step I expected something to lunge from the shadows, but Callum never faltered. He moved with the confidence of someone who knew these tunnels, eyes glowing softly in the dark, wolf and man both alive in his gaze. He didn't seem afraid, only determined. The deeper we went, the more claustrophobic the space became. The tunnel narrowed, forcing us single file, his heat brushing my shoulder with every step. At last, we emerged into a larger chamber, the ceiling arching high, stalactites gleaming faintly like fangs. A ribbon of underground water cut through the stone, its surface black as ink. Callum held up a hand. I stopped instantly. They're close, he murmured, nostrils flaring as if scent carried here even underground. His voice echoed off the cavern walls like something older than human speech. Too close. My stomach clenched. Do you think they followed our scent into the tunnels? They don't have to. His gaze flicked over the walls, the water. The ferals hunt on instinct. Rage guides them where reason cannot. Once they catch the trail, they don't stop. A sharp, echoing sound behind us, claws scraping stone. I jumped, hand clutching his sleeve. They're in the tunnels, I whispered. Callum drew me closer, his chest brushing my back as he inclined his head toward the water. We cross, he said, his voice low and urgent. The river wasn't wide, maybe 12 feet, but the current looked fast, and the water black with depth. My stomach twisted at the thought of wading through freezing water enveloping us. You'll never make it with your wound, I protested. His hand cupped my jaw suddenly, tilting my face to his. I'll make it if you stay with me. Understand? His thumb brushed my cheek, gentle despite the urgency. Stay with me, Elise. I swallowed hard and nodded. Together, we splashed into the water. The cold was brutal, knives piercing skin and bone, stealing my breath instantly. I bit down on a cry, forcing myself forward as Callum kept an iron grip on my wrist, dragging me through the current. His body formed a buffer, bearing the brunt, as if shielding me with sheer will. Halfway across, another sound split the cavern, a howl. But it was different this time, broken, fractured, laced with something so anguished it raised the hairs along my arms, even underwater. My foot slipped on the slick stone beneath the torrent, jerking me sideways. I would have gone under if not for Callum. He hauled me hard against him, my body slamming into his chest as the water rushed around us. My hands clung to him instinctively, fingers clutching for purchase in his soaked shirt. Breathe, he ordered, voice rough at my ear as the water surged around us. Don't fight it. Just move with me. His breath was fire in the freezing dark, and for one suspended moment I forgot where we were, forgot the monsters closing in. There was only his arms holding me steady against the current, only the thunder of his heartbeat pressed against mine. We stumbled onto the far bank, drenched and shivering, collapsing onto the cold stone. My breath sobbed through my chest as adrenaline surged. Callum shimmered with water and firelight, amber eyes locked on me, his chest rising and falling with controlled force. We were too close, closer than I should be to a man I didn't understand, whose very existence defied everything I believed, yet part of me craved not to move. Why are they like that? I finally managed, breaking the spell. My voice came out ragged. The ferals. Why do they hunt like animals? Callum leaned back against the stone, jaw clenched. They were human once. Cerulean's trials destroyed their minds. They survived the transformation, but without balance, without tether. His voice faded, thick with something I couldn't place. They're trapped halfway. He didn't have to finish. Halfway between man and wolf, forever. I folded my arms around myself to stop shaking, though it didn't help much. Is that what they want to do? To people like me? Turn us into them? Callum's gaze slid to me, sharp enough to cut. No, not you. Never. You. The intensity in his voice startled me. Why me specifically? The muscles in his jaw worked, as though he was holding something back. Finally, he said, because you're not just some bystander who stumbled across secrets. You carry something in your blood, a marker. I blinked. What marker? He hesitated, then reached out, fingers brushing damp strands of hair from my face, as if the gesture anchored his words. Nathan didn't just find Cerulean's work. He found yours. Cold settled deeper than the river ever could. Mine, Callum nodded, his eyes glowing faintly in the cavern darkness. You're not ordinary, Elise. You never were. Your blood sings to me, to my wolf. That's why I couldn't walk away from you in the snow. Why I can feel you now, even when I shouldn't. My pulse thundered, racing faster than reason could catch it. That doesn't make sense. I'm human, but marked. His thumb lingered against my temple, as though feeling heat only he could sense. Maybe you've felt it your whole life. The sense something waited in the shadows, that you never quite belonged. My stomach turned. He was touching wounds I had never even confessed aloud. The alienation, the restless yearning I'd carried since childhood. Unexplainable dreams of forests and moons to close. Before I could respond, the sound came again, claws on stone. Closer. Callum's body tensed. No more time. He pushed to his feet and offered his hand. We run, we regroup, then I'll tell you everything. But you have to trust me, Elise. I stared at his hand, trembling, torn between instinct and reason. Every survival instinct said not to trust monsters, or men who kept secrets. And yet, something deeper, older, pushed me toward him, with a breath that shook. I placed my hand in his fingers closed tight around mine with heat that felt like fire on frozen skin, and for the first time, I wasn't sure if I was running from the ferals, or into something far more dangerous, a werewolf romance. Audiobook Section 6. The moon's marked crevice narrowed until I had to turn sideways, shoulders scraping cold stone as we squeezed through. My backpack snagged on the rock, and I panicked, thinking we'd be trapped here while Cerulean's mercenaries closed in. Callum's hand reached back, tugged me free, his strength steadying me when the confined space made my breath go shallow. Almost there, he murmured. His voice carried strange resonance in the narrow tunnel, shaped into something between growl and reassurance. Trust me. I did. Against all sane reason, I did. The tunnel opened abruptly into another chamber, smaller this time but dry, the air warmer despite the unbroken stone. Faint light glimmered from veins of quartz that trailed silver across the walls, glowing softly as if with their own power. It wasn't lantern light. It wasn't natural reflection. It was moonlight, trapped underground. I slowed, rooting me in place. What is this? Callum's expression turned solemn, almost reverent. A moon chamber. I blinked at him. That sounds like something out of a fairy tale. It is. He moved further in, guiding me to the center where a natural stone dais rose from the floor. His amber eyes glowed brighter in the luminescence. These places are older than any pack, older than written language. They're deep wells of what connects my kind to the moon, the force that gives us power, that shapes our shifting. Most humans walk past quartz veins like this without feeling a thing. And me? I whispered, because something strange was happening. The moment I stepped onto the dais, the veins of quartz brightened, silver fire chasing along the walls like water through channels. The glow bathed the cavern in shimmer. My skin prickled, every hair rising as though charged by invisible electricity. You, Callum said softly, watching me with an intensity that made my heartbeat stutter. Set it alight. I didn't do anything. He shook his head slowly. That's the point. The ground trembled faintly, boots echoing from far off. The cerulean hunters. The danger hadn't passed. But for the moment, Callum stood utterly still, transfixed not by their pursuit but by me. Callum, I began, unnerved by the awe in his expression. What are you saying? He stepped closer, lowering his voice, though the echoing tunnel made even whispers feel exposed. I've heard whispers in old stories, of humans marked not just by chance, but by fate. Rare ones born carrying the moon's spark, though they don't know it. They were guides, healers, the chosen or the cursed, depending who tells the tale. We call them moon-marked. I shook my head, clutching my backpack like it could shield me. That's impossible. I'm not special. I was just trying to survive after Nathan, your fianc, found them. Callum cut in gently. That was no accident. He stumbled onto what Cerulean was really after. Not just shifter blood. They're hunting for the moon-marked because they believe those like you are the missing key to perfecting their experiments. The air seemed to vanish from the chamber. Me? His gaze never left mine. Why do you think they've been tracking you this relentlessly? Why they didn't just kill you at Nathan's funeral and be done with it? Elise, there's something in you they can't replicate. I could smell it the moment I found you in the storm. The wolf in me recognized it before I did. No. My knees weakened, and I backed against the stone dais for support. I'm just human. I've always been human. Callum closed the distance into long strides, his warmth surrounding me. Human, yes, but something more too. His hand pressed lightly against my sternum, where my heart thundered wildly. I can feel it here, and so can they. That's why the bond between us flared so violently. Why it feels like. He hesitated, jaw tightening, like fate. I finished when he faltered. The word lodged thick in the air between us. Undeniable. Before I could ask more, a sound cracked through the chamber, louder this time. Human voices, muffled but distinct, echoing down the tunnels. Move. Their tracks end here. Panic surged, but Callum didn't flinch. His hand slid to mine, twining our fingers together with deliberate purpose. There's a tunnel behind the chamber. Narrow, but it leads to the surface. We'll have to move before they find the way through. I let him tug me from the glowing days, but my steps faltered when the quartz lines dimmed instantly after I passed. Callum saw it, too, his head snapping toward the fading light, confirmation in his taut expression. It only lit for you, he muttered, almost to himself. As if that frightened him more than the approaching hunters, I stumbled along behind him into the secondary passage, heart colliding with my ribs. Everything hurt, my muscles, my mind, my grasp on reality. Callum, if what you're saying is true, it is, he cut in. I've been trained to dismiss legends, but I know what I saw, the moon answering you. Cerulean isn't chasing stolen files, they want you. With your blood, your spark, they think they can fix every failure, make their hybrid soldiers permanent. The word echoed. Soldiers. I pressed a hand to my mouth, nausea threatening. That's why Nathan was killed. Not for taking secrets, but because I was connected to them. Because you were the secret, Callum admitted, his voice ragged. I staggered, nearly tripping. The thought clawed at me worse than the blizzard ever could. All these months, I'd thought I was just collateral damage, grief-blind and guilty for surviving Nathan. But the truth was so much worse. They hadn't been chasing me because of what I had. They'd been chasing me because of what I was. Footsteps grew louder behind us, close enough that I could hear the click of rifles being readied. Callum cursed under his breath, pulling me close against the cave wall. Stay behind me. Callum, you're still injured, doesn't matter. His teeth flashed, not quite human, a glimmer of the wolf breaking through. They won't touch you. Before I could argue, flashlight beams cut across the quartz walls. Voices barked orders. The hunters had arrived. Callum moved before thought, slipping half-shifted into something both more and less than human, his posture lowering, muscles coiling, claws glinting where fingers had been. My breath caught as I saw how quickly the wolf lived under his skin, eager to spill free. Shots exploded, deafening in the enclosed space. I ducked and covered my head, but Callum was faster than their aim. In a blur, he struck, disarming one hunter with bone-snapping efficiency before turning on the next. He was terrifying, beautiful, otherworldly. Through the chaos, a single thought hummed in my mind, clearer than the gunfire, clearer than my fear. He's not fighting for himself. He's fighting for me. One hunter turned his weapon on me, instead choosing the weaker target. I froze, too slow to react as the barrel swung in my direction. But before he could fire, Callum's body shielded mine, the shot ricocheting harmlessly against the stone. His arm braced either side of me, his heat enveloping me completely. The hunters reeled back, shouting, regrouping further down the tunnel. For now, we had a breath's reprieve. Callum leaned close, his forehead barely brushing mine, his breath ragged. His amber eyes burned with unspoken intensity. You asked me earlier what this is between us, he rasped, voice raw from battle. Elise, it's more than a bond. It's a claim. My wolf has marked you already, and your spark answered him. That's why I can feel you even when I shouldn't. That's why I can't let you go. My pulse thundered so loud it drowned the lingering echoes of gunfire. You're saying, I'm saying you're mine, he finished, low and certain. Then his jaw clenched, struggling to soften the primal declaration. Not in chains, not in ownership, but in blood, in soul. The moon doesn't give bonds like this lightly. The ground shook with another explosion, hunters blowing charges to widen the cave entrance. Our moment shattered under the noise, urgency rushing back in, but even as he pulled me toward a shadowed escape tunnel, his words clanged through my very bones. You're mine, not a threat, not a promise. A truth written in something older than either of us. And though every part of me should have recoiled in defiance, I found myself clinging tighter to his hand, terrified less of what hunted us than of what would happen if that tether between us snapped. It took everything in me, the strength I didn't think I had. Maybe the strength I didn't have until now to drag one last boulder off Callum's chest. My muscles screamed, but something deep inside went beyond human limits. My body wanted him free, needed it, the way lungs need air. When the rock shifted, he let out a ragged groan and slumped sideways, coughing up dust and blood. For a horrifying heartbeat, I thought he'd lost consciousness, but then his amber eyes cracked open to look at me. Somehow, even caked in blood and grime, they still burned. I told you. His voice was so weak it scraped across my chest like gravel. To leave me? Yeah, well, my own voice broke as I pushed hair out of my face with filthy, scraped hands. You should know by now that I don't listen. I pressed trembling fingers to his temple, brushing the streak of silver hair plastered there with grit. And in that moment, with my own pulse still thundering wild from the collapse, the realization hit me again. I shouldn't care this much. We barely knew each other. Fewer than 3 days since our first meeting. And yet every part of me rebelled at the idea of losing him. I wasn't ready to bury another man I cared about. He struggled to sit up, gritting his teeth against fresh waves of pain, and I caught his shoulders to steady him. His shirt was shredded, his wound seeping, his skin pale in the bleak daylight that reflected silver off the snow drift around us. He looked terrifyingly fragile and yet, still, impossibly strong. You healed, he rasped, eyes flicking to my hands. No trace of cuts remained, though the memory of pain lingered. It's begun. What has? The awakening, he murmured, then clenched his jaw when the effort of standing pulled his side. Half-bloods sometimes trigger under pressure. It's your body remembering what it is, what it can do. I swallowed hard, adrenaline and disbelief burning in equal measure. So, what, I'm supposed to suddenly be fast and strong and, what, growl at the moon? A ghost of a smirk tugged at the corner of his bloodied mouth. Not exactly, but you'll learn. In time. He staggered, and before he fell, I hooked my arm beneath his, bracing us both against the slope of fallen stone. His weight was solid, but not unbearable, not anymore. If anything, it almost felt right, my body adapting instinctively to carry what he couldn't. But he was barely clinging to consciousness. His body trembled with suppressed pain despite his wolf healing. The silver bullet lodged deep in his muscles was slowing him still, stealing away what little strength he'd regained. We need to get you somewhere safe, I said firmly. His hand closed around my wrist like a vice. No, I blinked. No? You can't even walk on your own, Elise. You don't understand. His voice, ragged as it was, still carried authority, that alpha command humming in his chest. He turned his head away from me, jaw tight. If you stay with me, they'll catch us both. I'm injured, slowed. You're their true target now. Run, take the files. Disappear while you still have a chance. The words cracked something deep inside me. You're telling me to abandon you? I'm telling you to survive. I tore my wrist free, fury sparking sharp enough that I surprised even myself. That's not survival. That's surrender. And it's exactly what Nathan said the night he. My throat locked. My breath came fast, ragged. Callum's gaze softened, though pain baked hard lines into his features. Nathan tried to shield you? Tears stung. He told me not to follow him to the office the night he died. Said it was too dangerous. Said he'd handle it himself. I sucked in a jagged breath. I listened. And he came back in a coffin. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was thick, vibrating with everything. I couldn't say. Everything Callum clearly understood. I'm not making that mistake again, I said, voice hoarse but steady. So don't you dare ask me to leave you behind. I would rather run headlong into Cerulean's jaws with you than breathe one more day without you. The admission shocked me. Him too, judging by his expression. Elise. His grip on my arm loosened, turned tender instead of commanding. You can't mean I do. My breath fogged in the icy air between us. I don't care what you are, or what I am. I'm not walking away. So either you come with me on defeat, or I drag you by the shoulders through this forest myself. Your choice. For the first time since I'd met him, Callum looked. Shaken, not by pain, not by hunters or ferals, by me, by the absolute refusal in my words. The bond between us twisted tighter in that silence, like steel cables pulled taut. My heart thundered. His nostrils flared, maybe sending it my determination, my fear, my you don't understand what this tether means, he said finally, voice low, almost desperate. If we give into it, Elise, it's not just attraction. It's not a simple human romance. It'll bind us for life, no matter what happens. His breath came sharp, ragged, and sometimes fate isn't merciful. I shook my head, biting back the fear in my throat. I've already lived through the worst fate, losing Nathan. So I'm telling you right now I am not losing you too. We stared at each other, snow swirling between us, silence louder than any gunshot. Then Callum bent forward, his forehead pressing briefly to mine. It wasn't a kiss, but it stole the strength from my knees all the same, a gesture raw with desperation and unspoken words. When he pulled back, he looked ready to argue again, to push me away, to resume his noble suffering wolf act. I wasn't giving him the chance. I tightened my grip on his hand. We move, together, end of discussion. For a long moment, he didn't move. Then slowly, like he was surrendering to something beyond himself, he nodded once. We stumbled through the snow, away from the rockfall, me supporting as much of his weight as he'd allow. Both of us exhausted, but unwilling to stop. At one point, I slipped on ice. An instinct had me clutching him tighter. He caught me to his chest, pain flashing across his face, but his hold iron strong despite it. The electric current between us roared hotter than ever. I could hardly breathe from it. Elise, he muttered, like my name was equal parts curse and prayer. If you knew what I could do to you, what being bound to me means, you'd run, then stop underestimating me. I shot back, his eyes flared golden, the wolf rising close to the surface. For one wild second, I thought he was going to kiss me again right there, in the biting snow, danger pressing down from every direction. Instead, he ripped his eyes away, slumping against me. If you stay, I can't protect you. I drew in a shaky breath, clinging tighter. You don't have to. We'll protect each other. The words tasted dangerous but true, and before either of us could say more, a crack split the forest air. A gunshot. Bark exploded from the tree beside us. Callum's body snapped rigid, dragging me down into the snow with him as another shot rang out. They've caught up, he hissed, pulling me close. Blood dripped fresh down his side. Cerulean's here. As shadows detached themselves from the tree line, armed men with rifles sweeping forward, I realized something bone deep. Whether I was ready or not, I was theirs. Their hunted prize, and Callum, broken or not, was the only force standing in their way. For a moment, the world held still. Snowflakes drifted lazily through the clearing, silver under the moonlight. My breath came in harsh bursts, white plumes hanging between me and her. Sylvia Thorne, Callum's sister, the ghost he'd mourned, the hope he clung to, alive. But the woman before us wasn't whole. Her smile was edged with cruelty, her eyes burning too brightly amber, verging on gold. Her body trembled with restrained power as bone shifted beneath skin, sinew tightening in preparation for something monstrous. Not feral, not human. something in between. Callum stood frozen beside me, his face a storm. I couldn't read grief, horror, desperate joy, all tangled together, pulling him in opposite directions. Sylvia, he breathed again, as if saying her name might anchor her back to who she'd been. She tilted her head, mockery curling her lips. Don't sound so surprised, little brother. Cerulean doesn't waste good material. You're not material. Callum snapped, stepping forward. His hand twitched at his side, caught between reaching for her and raising claws. You're my blood, my pack. She laughed, a sound not entirely human. Pack? Our pack is dead. I saw their bodies burn while you rotted in a cell. I survived because I adapted. Cerulean made me stronger. No, they twisted you. Callum's voice broke. Syl, tell me this isn't real. Tell me they didn't. They gave me purpose. She cut in. And they showed me you're weak. Still clinging to outdated loyalties. Still pretending we're noble creatures of the forest. Meanwhile, I'm hunting with real power at my back. Her gaze cut to me like a blade, narrowing with almost feral hunger. And speaking of power, I stiffened as her nostrils flared, inhaling deeply. Recognition flared in her eyes. So it's true, our precious hybrid. Half human, half wolf, destined to fix all of Cerulean's mistakes. Callum moved so quickly I barely registered it 1 second at my side. The next, a barrier before me. His body crouched low, his claws gleaming in the moonlight. His voice dropped to a growl. You're not touching her. Sylvia smiled, slow and cruel. Ah, so now I understand. It's not just instinct, is it? Her eyes flicked between us. The bond. You found your tether. To a human, no less. How poetic. No wonder you want to protect her. Her words rang in my chest with the same truth I'd been struggling to deny. The bond. That pull drawing us together, no matter the danger. I saw Callum's shoulders tense at her confirmation, but he didn't deny it. Something inside me stirred at Sylvia's attention as if my blood recognized the predator before me. My hands tingled, the way they had in the snow when my cuts healed. But there was no time to focus on it. Sylvia lunged. She moved impossibly fast, body elongating mid-spring, claws forming around half-changed hands. Callum met her head-on, the impact of sibling against sibling reverberating through the clearing like a thunderclap. I stumbled back, shielding my face from flying snow and dirt as the two slammed together. They fought like lightning and storm bone and claw, teeth bared in identical snarls. And it wasn't just a fight of survival. It was family tearing itself apart, years of loss and betrayal crashing together. Come with me, brother. Sylvia snapped between blows, raking her claws across his arm. Together we can rule this war. Humans will kneel or break the way they were always meant to. Never. Callum countered, twisting to throw her over his shoulder with bone-cracking force. You're not my sister. Not anymore. The words landed sharper than his claws. Sylvia rolled lithely back to her feet, blood streaking her cheek but her grin still feral. Then I'll kill her, and watch our bond rip you apart. Rage like I'd never known surged through me. Instinctive. Primal. Hot. You'll have to go through me first, I heard myself say, though my entire body trembled. Sylvia laughed, all sharp teeth. Gladly. She lunged again, this time not for Callum but for me. My instincts screamed to run, but something stronger rooted me, a force awakening in my veins with astonishing clarity. Time slowed. I saw her trajectory, every muscle in her half-shifted body. I smelled the metallic tang of her blood, the sour stench of her altered DNA. I felt the earth beneath my boots, my muscles coiled like springs, and when she reached for me, I moved, faster than I should have, faster than any human could. I twisted aside and shoved with all my strength. The impact sent Sylvia crashing sideways into a tree with a force that rattled branches free of snow. My hands throbbed with the sensation, not pain, but raw power. Both Sylvia and Callum stared at me in shock. You. Callum breathed, his amber eyes blazing. It's waking, Sylvia snarled, snapping broken branches as she pulled herself from the tree trunk. Even better. You'll ripen faster than they thought. Cerulean will gorge itself on your blood. She launched herself again, but Callum intercepted, the clash of their bodies shaking the ground. This time he pressed the advantage, driving her back blow by blow. But she was no ordinary opponent. Every strike he landed, she twisted, absorbed, countered with ruthless precision. She fought like him because she was him, his blood, his mirror, only tempered by cerulean's cruelty. As they tore into each other, I realized neither could win easily. And the longer they fought, the more danger it put us all in, because we were no longer alone. The snap of twigs, the crunch of synchronized boots. From the tree line, figures emerged, black-clad, armed cerulean hunters. Their rifles gleamed with silver ammunition, their eyes cold behind tactical visors. And they were fanning out, surrounding the clearing. One of them spoke into a radio. Targets sighted. Asset live. Repeat hybrid confirmed. My blood ran cold. They weren't here for Callum. They were here for me. Callum, I screamed, as two hunters raised rifles in my direction. He broke from the clash just long enough to shove Sylvia aside, his body interposing between me and the advancing soldiers. A shot rang out, silver glinting, whistling past his ear to bury itself in the cabin wall. This is what they wanted all along, he shouted, eyes blazing as another bullet hissed by. You, Elise, your blood. Behind him, Sylvia laughed, a bitter, broken sound. Then let's give them what they came for. She lunged again, but this time not at Callum. At me. Callum roared, a sound that rattled in my bones, and met her midway. Brother and sister collided again, monstrous in the moonlight. Hunters flanked them, rifles rising, and I stood frozen in the snow, torn between the two truths tearing me apart. I was the key cerulean wanted most, and I was bound to a wolf who might not survive the night. We didn't sleep much that night. The hollow behind the waterfall offered shelter from eyes and ears, but not from the knowledge that an army hunted us through the mountains. Callum dozed in short bursts, head tipped against the stone wall, his body still recovering from wounds I had no words for. I sat beside him in restless vigil, clutching my backpack to my chest like a talisman. Near dawn, when the sky beyond the waterfall lightened to gray, Callum stirred. His amber eyes opened, sharp immediately despite exhaustion. He stretched gingerly, then tilted his head as though listening to something I couldn't hear. They've come, he said simply. My heart seized. Cerulean? No, ours. He rose carefully, wincing as he straightened. Reinforcements. Relief and nerves tangled uneasily in my gut. Until now, the resistance had been just words of vague hope Callum had mentioned in passing. The idea of others like him, others who understood, was both a lifeline and a new terror. Would they see me as an ally, or as bait in Cerulean's trap? We emerged from the hollow into the pale morning. Through the mist rising off the waterfall, I saw them, figures moving through the trees. Not hunters in black armor, but men and women in rough winter clothes. Woven eyes glowing faintly amber or gold. Shifters. One of them stepped forward. A tall woman with dark skin, braided hair, and a presence that made the forest itself seem to hush around her. Her wolf's energy rippled beneath her skin, power tightly leashed but undeniable. Callum Thorne, she said, voice calm but edged with steel. You keep dangerous company. I tensed instinctively, but Callum moved protectively closer to me. She's with me, Marin, and she's the reason we have a chance to stop Project Moonfall. Marin's sharp gaze swept over me, assessing from head to toe. Those eyes paused on my face, softened slightly as they lingered on my hair. My jaw then hardened again. She smells. Not quite human. Not quite wolf either. She's both, Callum said. Her mother was one of us. Cerulean's been hunting her for years without her knowledge. She's the hybrid they've been trying to create. A ripple of reaction moved through the gathered shifters' murmurs, suspicion, even hostility. One burly man spat into the snow. Half-bloods, he growled. They weaken the lines. We should never have enough. Callum's voice cracked like a whip. The hostility died at once, though the man's glare lingered. Without her, none of us stand a chance. She holds what Cerulean needs and what we can use to stop them. All eyes turned to me then, their weight almost unbearable. Part of me wanted to shrink back into the cave, to deny the truth and stay sheltered in ignorance. But another part, the part that had healed in seconds, that had scented pursuit in the dark, that had kissed a wolf and felt something ancient stir inside, rose to meet their scrutiny. I didn't ask to be this, I said, forcing my voice to steady. I didn't know, but I'm done running. If my blood makes me their key, then I'll be the weapon that breaks their lock. A long silence followed. Then Marin gave a single nod. Brave words. We will see if they hold true. We moved as a unit through the mountains, silent shadows gliding over snow. I'd never felt so out of place. The others moved with inhuman grace, senses tuned to the forest's every nuance. I stumbled often, clumsy, despite my supposedly half-shifter heritage. Yet, teeth and steel fight exploded. Callum lunged first, black form crashing into silver, the impact rattling the research office to its foundation. They grappled in a snarl of claws and fangs, smashing through desks and monitors, sending sparks and shattered glass across the room. Guards burst through the door, rifles raised. Instinct took over before fear could root me. I dove for the nearest workstation, grabbing the heavy computer tower and hurling it with inhuman strength. It struck the first guard square in the chest and sent him sprawling. I froze, staring at my own hands. That strength hadn't been mine before. The hybrid blood was waking. Focus. Callum's voice ripped through the bond, half snarl, half command. He was locked against Sylvia again, their jaws snapping inches from each other's throats. I shook off the shock and moved, faster than I should have been able to, slamming into the second guard before he could fire. His weapon clattered away, useless. The third raised his tranquilizer rifle toward Callum's exposed flank. I didn't think, I simply moved. My body blurred, not fully a shift but something in between, claws sprouting where nails should be, vision sharpening into crystal clear focus. I knocked the rifle sideways, its dart firing harmlessly into the wall. Then my claws raked across his arm, sending him screaming to the floor. When I looked back, Sylvia had pinned Callum against the far wall, her jaws closing on his throat. Panic tore through me, my fear, but his too, through the bond. Without hesitation, I reached deeper inside myself, into that wild current thrumming under my skin, and screamed. The sound wasn't human. It reverberated through the chamber like a bell struck underwater. A hybrid's cry that made every guard recoil, hands clamped to ringing ears. Sylvia faltered, her crushing grip loosening just enough for Callum to twist free and hurl her across a desk. I stared at my trembling hands as they shrank back to human shape. What did I just do? Your gift. Callum gasped through the bond, blood streaking his fur. Life sense, sound force. Hybrids manifest differently. You've found yours. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt terrified. But there was no time. More guards were flooding the corridor outside. Moonfall's heart project. Moonfall is below, Callum said, voice ragged as he shifted back human, clothing shredded and bloodied. If Sylvia slows us, the rest of you. He broke off, realizing there was only me. The others were still scattered across the facility on their mission threads. We do this together, I said firmly, grabbing one of the fallen guard's rifles. My hands shook, but only with adrenaline. Together we sprinted down the sterile corridor, lights strobing red. At the last junction, a reinforced door bore the words, Demonstration Hall. Through its narrow window I glimpsed rows of containment pods, 20 of them, each holding a restrained test subject. Some shifted spasmodically against their bonds, flesh rippling grotesquely. Premature hybrids. My stomach lurched. Project Moonfall wasn't an experiment, it was a slaughterhouse waiting for its first audience. Callum's face was grim. If they release them tomorrow, the demonstration will prove Cerulean's program works. Even partial success will be enough to win military contracts. He met my eyes. We can't let that happen. How do we stop it? He glanced down the hall, where warning lights strobed by the main lab doors. The core power system. If we overload it, everything goes down. The labs, the pods, their research storage. We burn it all and get out. How? His grim smile didn't reach his eyes. We improvise. Sister against brother. The sound of claws on steel made me whip around. Sylvia emerged from the shadows, half-shifted now, blood streaking her silver fur where Callum had wounded her. But her grin was feral triumph. Still fighting destiny, brother? She taunted. You think destroying this one facility will stop Cerulean? They have dozens more. But this one, her gaze slid to me. This one has our future inside, not ours, I snapped, stepping forward before Callum could answer. I won't be your lab rat. I won't let you make puppets out of children, out of anyone. Something flickered in her eyes, envy, maybe, or rage. You don't get it, cousin. You were born to be the key. You should be standing beside me, not him. I already chose my pack, I said. Before she could retort, Callum roared and launched at her. Their battle clashed down the hall, claws sparking against steel, teeth snapping inches from lethal wounds. I wanted to run, wanted to protect him, but the pods drew my eye again. Inside them, the test subjects thrashed harder against the syrupy fluid, their screams muffled behind glass. They weren't just experiments, they were people. And if this place fell and they survived as Cerulean soldiers, Dozens more would follow. Do something. My instincts howled. I raced to the primary console, praying I could read the jumble of Cerulean's interface. Rows of controls blinked. Stabilization, phase, initiate, override, lock, override. That was the word I needed. I slapped the switch. Sirens wailed. The pod's locks disengaged but not to open. Instead, the system hissed into purge mode. The subject's vitals spiked, alarms cascading. They were going to terminate them. No. I slammed my hands against the panel. My awareness surged outward, locking onto the flickering life forces contained in the pods. Their struggling, frantic pulses. I reached with everything I had, with blood and bond and desperation. And something answered. The power grid shivered. The lights flared, then blew out. Sparks rained from conduits as alarms screeched incoherently and the pods hissed open one after another. Smoke filled the chamber as the facility convulsed around us. Callum stumbled back toward me, bleeding heavily from his fight with Sylvia, but alive. She was gone, vanished into the smoke, retreating. Elise, he choked out, grabbing my shoulder. That was you. You overloaded the system. You stopped it. No, I gasped, staring at the open pods. Their occupants lay motionless, but faint threads of life still glowed in my awareness. We stopped it. Escapathy world tilted as explosions thundered deeper in the complex. Dev's charges, detonating in sequence. The ceiling tiles rattled, sprinklers burst, spraying chemical-tainted water. Smoke and alarms swallowed everything. We need to go now, Callum urged. He half-carried me down the corridor as the facility collapsed around us. I could still sense Sylvia's energy in the distance, retreating through a different wing, promising she wasn't done with us. Together we burst through an emergency exit into the bitter night air. The rest of our ragged team was already there, Mara and Marcus supporting the freed captives, Dev limping but grinning. Behind us, Cerulean's proud facility buckled inward, flames bursting high into the night sky. Project Moonfall's first demonstration had ended in ash. For tonight, at least, we had won. The bond. We stumbled into the forest, keeping to shadow until the roaring behind us faded to distant thunder. At last, Callum sagged to his knees, his body shuddering from blood loss. I dropped beside him, cupping his face in my shaking hands. Stay with me. Don't you dare leave me now. His eyes found mine, molten amber even in the dark. Weakly, he pressed my hand to his chest. Can you feel it? The bond, it's complete now. And I could. The fierce tether blazing between us, filling me with his heartbeat, his breath, even the depth of his exhaustion and relief. Our souls had locked irrevocably together, sealed in fire and blood and choice. No more running, I promised. Not from Cerulean, not from who we are, not from each other. His rough laugh broke into a gasp as I kissed him fiercely, possessively, the kiss of two survivors who had earned a future. Around us, our allies kept watch, but in that moment, there was no Cerulean, no hunters, no sister waiting in the shadows, just the truth. Callum Thorne was mine. And I was his. Wolf, hybrid, bonded mates, and together, we were unstoppable. A Werewolf Romance Audiobook Section 11. Epilogue running together. It's strange how quickly silence becomes a kind of music. After weeks of alarms and gunfire and the pounding of my terrified heart, the quiet of dawn is almost dizzying. Just birdsong in the evergreens, the crunch of frost beneath boots, Callum's steady breathing as he matches my pace, running beside him. Not away from something this time. Beside him. Toward whatever comes next. The safe house has become more than a shelter, it's become something like a home. The freed shifters stayed to regroup here, forming the beginnings of a new pack. Mara watches over us all with fierce pragmatism. Marcus tends to the wounded with hands gentler than one would expect from a warrior. And Dev has transformed from half-feral teenager to loyal younger brother to anyone who'll let him. Even Sylvia, recovering slowly, her energy patterns stabilizing under my tentative guidance, is here. Some mornings I see her sitting alone by the tree line, eyes unreadable. No longer Cerulean's weapon, but not yet anything else. It's complicated. But then again, so am I. I never imagined I would belong in a place like this, among wolves and wildness. Yet each day reveals more of what Callum saw in me from the start. The sharpened senses I once dismissed as quirks. The resilience I thought was only stubbornness. The hidden strength that surfaced when I stopped running from it. I'm learning that being half-shifter doesn't mean being half of anything. It means being whole in a way entirely my own T night. When the scars of our battles feel freshest, Callum reminds me of that. His arms around me, his bond woven into my thoughts, his heart steady against mine. We don't always have words for what's between us, but then, perhaps words aren't necessary when something is written so deeply into your blood. Tell me what you're thinking, he says one evening, as we lie under a quilt I've claimed as ours. The chill mountain air sneaking through the cabin walls that I never thought I'd get here. I admit that for months, I believed my only choices were hiding or dying. And now, I'm choosing, actively, choosing this life. You, us. The glow in his amber eyes says everything words could not. He kisses me like he's sealing a vow, and maybe he is. There are still shadows, of course. Cerulean isn't gone. Mara gets whispers through old informants that the company is relocating, rebranding. New names, new scientists, new projects. They'll be back. We know it. But next time, we'll be ready. Next time, I won't just be prey scrambling in the snow. Because here's the truth. I stopped trying to run. I stopped because I found someone I can run with. This morning, Callum and I followed deer trails until the path narrowed, where we both shifted into something less literal, but just as real. He into his wolf, me into awareness. My body doesn't transform like his, no fur, no claws, but when I push all my senses outward, when I feel the pulse of life within the earth and trees and every living thing around me, it's not so different. I feel wild, boundless, running with him. I belong to the world instead of hiding from it. We crest a ridge together and pause side by side. The sun is breaking across the mountains, gilding the snow in molten light. Callum lowers his great wolf head, and for a moment, amber eyes meet mine with such tenderness that my throat tightens. I reach out instinctively, not just with my hand, but with that pulsing awareness, and he reaches back across the bond. Electricity, warmth, that complete sense of recognition. Mate, the word no longer frightens me. It thrills me, because it doesn't mean chains, it means freedom. Freedom from running alone. Freedom to fight, love, and live together. So yes, I tried to run from him, from myself, from all of it, but the bond always brought me back. And standing here, with the future stretched out before us like an endless horizon of snow and sun, I'm glad it did, because this isn't the end of my story. It's only the beginning of ours.